Live shows Monday, Tuesday, best ofs Wednesday, Thursday, and I will be back.
And now, the phone lines are open for your opportunity to speak your mind and give your opinion on the most influential music ever made. Your voice, your topics, your show. This is Free for All Friday with host Eddie Trunk.
Yeah, it is Free for All Friday indeed. A wonderful time of the week because it's the end of the week. And we are headed into a weekend, and it is also the first day of May. So May 1st, 2026. It is 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. And it's always good to have you guys on board, hanging with me to talk rock music and see what else we get into here over the next couple of hours, live until 5 Eastern. Been a good week. Been a good week of a lot of mixed things. Of course, a lot of fun for me to talk to Phil Mogg of UFO yesterday. Appreciate that very much. Him joining us from England, where it was in the evening there. Andy Parker, UFO's original drummer, who came up in the interview, was listening and sent me some texts since. Found it funny that Phil alluded to him potentially using a walker to walk, which he is not. But those guys just love to dig on each other, and it was good to hear Phil in his good spirits and having some fun yesterday in his way. So that was really, really special for me. And if you missed it, it is on the SiriusXM app, as are all the shows from this past week. So be sure to get caught up. Good chance to get caught up on anything you may have missed over the weekend, of course, as well. Just dial up the app, punch in my name, punch in Trunk Nation. You will see it all come up. And, of course, don't forget, you can see some of the interviews that we do on the YouTube at Eddie Trunk. And I just minutes ago, should be there now, it was uploading, put up the interview with Kip Winger in video. So you can see that when Kip joined us earlier in the month, when he joined to talk about his classical record, but also the status of the band Winger, which, you know, is always a interesting thing, falling in the no band ever ends category. Because Winger, yet the latest band to say, we're done, we're not playing anymore. And of course, multiple dates announced for next year. But Kip kind of clarified some of that. And he joined us, of course, earlier in the month. You could hear it on the SiriusXM app. Now there is video. And yes, it is up now if you'd like to check that out. So we got more stuff. We'll keep building that out for you, and cool stuff coming to YouTube, including my long-awaited concert from a couple years ago, which now there is momentum to finally get that out properly and how we're going to roll it out and all that. So that's what's going on. As we look ahead into next week, once we get through the weekend, we have on Monday Phil Collins joining us. Legendary drummer, singer for Genesis, and now going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist. So he'll join us on Monday. And on Tuesday's show, we have Neil Sean of Journey joining us, returning to the program. So that should be good. And then, as I mentioned, Wednesday, Thursday, you'll get best of shows, taking a couple days off. Wednesday, Joel just told me we're going to replay Triumph, all three members of the band on this show, announcing their reunion, which is now happening and about to start in the U.S., so good timing to revisit that. And also a interview with Ted Nugent from a different show. We'll go into that show on Wednesday. Nuge is also in the NBEE category of No Band Ever Ends. He announced a farewell, and now he has about 20 shows announced. So there's literally an example of it 3 times a day at this point. Also, I can tell you, So next week, live shows Monday, Tuesday, best ofs Wednesday, Thursday, and I will be back to finish the week for a free-for-all Friday, a week from today, live. And I can also tell you a new guest edition a week from Tuesday. Joining us will be Jason Newsted. Of course, the former bassist from Metallica, guy who joined the album on And Justice, was the guy who played bass on one of the biggest records of all time, the Black Album, and of course, as you know, stayed in Metallica for many, many years and many, many albums. Jason, who is sometimes activated in music, sometimes very low key and under the radar. He's kind of risen up and done some music stuff and gone back underground at times. He is rising up again to do music, this time not necessarily metal music. He is going out and doing some shows with Blackberry Smoke, who are celebrating their 25th anniversary. So it might be a good time to get Charlie Starr back on with us sometime in the near future. And also doing some of his own headline dates with a group called the Chop House Band, where he is playing guitar and singing. So we'll get all the information on that from Jason himself when he joins us a week from this Tuesday, also returning to the program. So a lot of good stuff coming on the horizon as we break into this month of May. And of course, we'll also have plenty of shows to include you on the phones with free-for-all action, open phones, getting you involved. And of course, even on shows where we have guests, we like to do that as well. So that's what's happening. Our phone number, as usual, is 844-686-5863. Keep that number handy. As I said the other day, if you listen to the show in our live window using the SiriusXM app, you can also easily just hit the little phone icon. That will dial into the show today, and we will be giving you a vast majority of today's show on the phones because the news is like extraordinarily light for a Friday. There's literally nothing really that I picked up on of note. The Godsmack live album came out today. We had Sully on for that less than a week ago. You can hear that on demand if you missed it. Really, there's very little. I did want to mention, we had a guy on the show that goes by the tag of Frank Ken Stein. His name is Ken Nardi. And I always say it's amazing to me what people are doing with some of these fan-created remixes, editing, remastering, whatever they're doing to classic records. And what Ken Nardi does is really pretty amazing on some of these remixes, and whether it's audio or video and restorations and what have you. We had him on talking about it at one point. He sent me a remix of the Kiss 1976 studio album, Rock and Roll Over. And that album is pretty flawless. So that is some rarefied air to jump into. For many hardcore Kiss fans, that is their favorite Kiss studio album. But Ken did a remix of that record, and it's now on YouTube. So if that's of interest to you, you might want to check it out. I've only had a chance to listen to one or two songs. I just haven't had the time. But that was an interesting one for him to dive into. And that's up now on YouTube. I figured I'd mention that. But really, very, very light for a Friday. It's remarkable. There's really, usually we have all kinds of announcements and news, but it's, I don't know, people getting ready for the summer or whatever, kind of winding down a bit as far as news for the week. So with that, Joel, I'll throw to you. I mean, you may have some stuff you want to jump in on. Anything you saw that jumped out at you that you want to share with the audience?
Nothing news-wise, like you said. It's really just new music for me to shout out today. For as far as what was released today, we have new albums out from the band Crobot, Seven Dust, and Venom. The albums, Crobot's is called Supermoon, Seven Dust album is One, and Venom is Into Oblivion. We also got new singles today from Eric Gronwall, who released a single from his upcoming new album. We got a single from Hollywood Undead and Kings of Thrash. And that's pretty much all I got from today.
I didn't know Crowbot did a new album already. I like that band a lot. I'll have to check that out. Seven Dust guys are great. We've had Lejean on the show many times. And good to, I think they've got it's probably like their 10th, 15th record. It's amazing. Seven Dust kind of get put into like kind of a newer band category. They're not. I mean, they've been around for a really long time, but they're still really good at what they do. And they're always out there touring as well. So definitely some new music to check out that Joel will be giving you some samples of along the way as we go. There was something else in that Joel mentioned that I was going to comment on, and I just spaced
Venom, Eric, Gronwall, Kings of Thrash.
Oh, yeah. So, well, the Kings of Thrash thing is Ellefson. I mean, Ellefson's got like 55 projects. He's the Jeff Scott Soto of bass. And of course, we had them on together from the Monsters of Rock cruise. But yeah, so yesterday you may have heard, if you listened to the Phil Mogg interview, Phil took a little swipe at Michael Schenker touring that recent tour that Michael did where he played all UFO songs. And, interestingly, I did not go to any of those shows. Now, it wasn't because I was, for any reason, it just did not work out with my schedule. But a lot of people who are, know what a big UFO fan I am, were surprised that I didn't, travel to a show as I've done sometimes in the past or whatever. But one of the things, and we talked about this while that tour was happening, was that the singer that Michael chose to use for the US dates really, from what I heard online, and again, I always reserve full comment or judgment unless I see it in person, but you can't help but to look at stuff online and listen of YouTube videos or whatever, cell phone stuff. And, it just did not seem like the right guy to be singing UFO. It was more of a kind of power metal voice. And of course, UFO is such a incredibly melodic hard rock band. And Phil Mogg's voice was a huge part of the appeal for me and many others. And me and others were very surprised at the guy, and I don't know, many did not know who he was, who Michael chose to use for the US shows. So Phil, if you heard the interview yesterday, when I asked him what he thought about that, took a little shot and said it would have been nice if Michael chose to use a professional singer. Now, again, those were Phil's words, and he certainly didn't go to any of the shows, but he probably saw some of it as well and didn't feel it was the right guy. I don't think Phil was talking about Eric Gronwall. So Joel mentioned Eric Gronwall in the news. That's why this came into my head. Eric Gronwall did dates in Europe as the singer for Schenker. And he also did, I think, shows in Japan. Gronwall did not do the U.S. shows. And, Eric is a great singer. And I think he probably handled singing Phil Mogg a bit better than the guy that they used in the U.S., who, again, I don't know him personally, but I don't even know his name, but it just seemed like he was more of an aggressive metal singer than what Phil Mogg did, which was like a harder rock Paul Rodgers. So after I thought about it, I was like, I'm sure that Phil is probably thinking and talking about stuff he saw for the US dates, because I'm not covering for Eric here. I mean, I've only met Eric a couple times, not like I know him real well or anything, but I would think that, from what I saw and heard, Eric did a closer job representation of the music than the person they used for the US. So I have a feeling that's where Phil's comment was directed. But it was, and he backpedaled a little bit from it, but More than one person had made that comment about that tour for the U.S. singer that was used. Although we had some people calling the show and they said that, they were okay with it, although it was a bit different than what they would have expected. So anyway, again, you can hear that interview on the app if you missed it, as well as everything from the past week or two to get caught up. All right, so really, as we said, very, very, very little going on to close the week as far as news and headlines. So we are going to get to a break much earlier than usual, and we're going to give much more of the show to you guys. Now, also, don't forget, I tied in yesterday with this underrated theme, which we were going to do the whole show on yesterday because we didn't know if we were going to have Phil Mogg. We ended up getting Phil Mogg, so obviously we didn't do a lot on that yesterday. So if you'd like to chime in on that, you can do that or do anything with your call today because, again, it is a free-for-all day. So 844-686-5863, if you've got an underrated musician or artist or band like me, like I said yesterday, for me, UFO tops that list. That's where the idea came from. You can call that in. But again, it doesn't have to be that. Anything you want, and we'll get to those phones, and we'll get to you.
No. A cannon can be a musical instrument.
And people absolutely went crazy.
Truck Nation, where we salute those who've come to rock. Back to Free for All Friday, where all opinions are necessary.
That's the reason we're here. It's the reason you're here. Glad to be a part of it.
Here's your host, Eddie Trunk.
Joe played you a little bit of the Seven Dust that is out today going into the break. Also, he mentioned new music is out today by the band Crobot, who I told you I like that band. I've been listening to that band on and off pretty much since they started. They've gone through a bunch of lineup changes. I remember a few years ago, I went and visited them in the studio. I was in Texas at the time they were making a record there. And my friend Jay Rustin was producing the record. And that was probably about 4 years ago, maybe. So I don't know if that was the last record they made. Also, when we had one of the last rounds of open phones, somebody had called in, mentioned the COC album, the new COC album, which is a double record, and recommended that to me. I took that recommendation. I did listen to that record. And it is really good. So that was a good recommendation that somebody called in to me. Also, the new John Corabi album is out. That's real good. That's more, for Corabi, it's not as hard rock. It's a little bit more of a straight up rock vibe. John is in Europe right now. I reached out to him because he wanted to come on the show. So there's a lot of the new Brother Kane record. We had Damon Johnson and Johnny Van Zant on this show a couple days ago on the app. If you missed it, Joel put some video clips out today, as a matter of fact, so you can see some of that. But those guys came on and talked about Skynyrd, of course, which they're both in. But in addition to that, Johnny guests on a track on the new Brother Kane album with Damon that's dedicated to Gary Rossington. Again, you'll hear about all this in the interview if you listen to it or you did listen to it. And that Brother Kane album is really, really good. So there is some really good new music that has come out even in just the last week or two. As I talk about all the time, the challenge can be keeping up with it, finding out about it, knowing about it. Even today, I didn't know there was a new Crobot record out until Joel mentioned it. Even me, it's hard to keep up. So we do our best to kind of cherry pick some of the better stuff and let you guys know about it. Even if it's stuff we're not personally into, if it's rock, just kind of cut through a lot of the noise out there and bring that to you and give you clips or give you recommendations. And we hear that from you guys as well, and that helps everybody out. So that's cool. And one of the things we will do in the near future, because I really said I wanted to do this at least on a monthly basis, but it always just gets away from me because there's so much always going on every day. But we talked about wanting to do more of those new music shows where you guys call in new bands. And we definitely are on to do one of those in the very near future. But as I just mentioned, running down the schedule next week, even into the following week, we are stacked with guests and stuff going on, and I'm just taking 2 days off in that whole run. But that coupled with guests every day, like I said, Monday, Phil Collins. We only have about 20 minutes with Phil Collins, so that's going to be closing the show on Monday. And then Tuesday, Neil Sean. And then, like I said, the following Tuesday, Jason Newsted. So we'll keep you posted as we go. Stuff's always changing, evolving, shifting around. And that's why we always tell you as well to keep an eye on our social media accounts. At Eddie Trunk for me, X, Instagram, page on Facebook, and the show accounts at Trunk Nation SXM, X, Instagram, and TikTok now as well for a show account that Joel is putting some content up on. All right, so let's get to your calls. Anything you want in the world of rock. It is a free-for-all Friday, and we begin in Wisconsin. Here is John as our first caller. What's going on, John?
Hey, Eddie. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, you got it, man.
Do you think Phil Collins in the Air Tonight would have been as big as it is if it wasn't premiered by Michael Mann on Miami Vice?
I don't know. When you say premiered, was that the first time people heard it?
I think it was the first time played on TV.
Right, but the song existed and it was on the record. I don't know. That's a good question. I didn't really watch Miami Vice back in the day, but I know it was a huge show. I'm sure it probably had a big role in it. It's also in. Don't forget, it was also used in The Hangover, right? You know the movie The Hangover?
Quite a few movies since then.
You know what? I am writing myself a note, John, as we speak, because I'm going to ask Phil Collins exactly that. Good question. I'm going to bring that up to him when I talk to him on Monday. But yeah, I mean, that song, Marilyn Manson just covered that song. I mean, it's enormous. It's crazy how enormous that song is. And again, just on the basis of that song alone, it's crazy that Phil Collins has waited this long to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist. You can make the case that his solo career is way bigger in America for sure than Genesis. So, yeah, that's a good one. I really don't have the answer to that, but its usage has definitely elevated it for sure.
He also starred in one of the episodes as Phil the Shill, a talk show host, and we talked about Michael Mann before. Also, Ted Nugent was on an episode. And I don't know if you heard, but they started filming Heat 2 a few weeks ago.
Yes, I did. Thank you, John, for the call. I have a friend that is in the film industry, and he's been telling me that I think it's a prequel to the movie Heat, which Michael Mann did, and Heat is one of my all-time favorite movies. So I'm extremely excited that they are doing another one. I don't know if it's a prequel or a sequel, but I'm just super glad there's going to be another one. But yeah, the scene for In the Air Tonight in The Hangover, which is also a great movie. The first one's great. And me being such a Vegas guy, I love The Hangover. I love The Hangover. I love Swingers with Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. They're driving in. That scene where they're driving in to Vegas, you start to see the lights. Vegas, baby. Vegas. Vegas, baby. Vegas. Every time I go into some of the casinos here, I just want to go up to one of the cocktail waitresses and be like, yeah, why don't you and one of your beautiful baby friends, you do that now and you get slapped in the face, but God, that movie's so great too. But in The Hangover, In the Air Tonight is the scene with Mike Tyson. He's got the lion in his room and he's listening In the Air Tonight and he makes him wait to do the drum break. It's so great. Yeah, it's good stuff, John. Thank you for reminding me about that. I will. We're not going to have a lot of time with Phil Collins, so it's not like I'm going to be able to put a lot of you guys on the air with him. Although might be able to squeeze in a call or two. We'll see. You never know. We always keep the number handy, but I'll try to bring that up to him because that is obviously among his songs, mega huge. Here's Barry in Louisiana. Hey Barry, you're on the air.
Hey, how you been? Good to talk to you.
You too, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw 3 shows in April. I thought I could, if you let me, I'll run them down real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Zebra turned back the clock about 20 years, man, as UFO is to you, Zebra is to many of us down here, being from the state and the city of New Orleans. But they were,
sure.
Randy can still hit the notes. 3 original guys. They never BS'd us with this is going to be the last one. They just continue to play. But they sounded fantastic. They played about an hour and 50 minutes of straight Zebra stuff. 3 or 4 new ones. One, he said, was a co-write with Paul Stanley, so that made me think of you. And then they came back with a trilogy of Zeppelin tunes like they usually do. But they did the song Remains the Same, which I've been seeing them for 40 years, and I've never heard them do that. So it was great. They played here Friday and Saturday night in early April. And this was the one concert that had an opening band, so new bands, Anything But Human. I'd never heard of them out of the Dallas area. They've got stuff streaming. They were great. Not knowing a tune by them, they really blew me away. Good guitar-driven rock and roll. Guys looked like they were in their early 30s, maybe. Anything But Human. Show 2 was in New Orleans. Justin Hayward, the last guy standing from the Moody Blues, and of course he sang most of the big hits. That was kind of a semi-acoustic, not quite acoustic, because he did pull out his electric, and he had a band with him. Not a drum set, though, but a percussionist, and that was really good. And then 2 or 3 nights ago, Carl Palmer's trio in Baton Rouge, and that was a real bucket list for me as a drummer. Palmer's been one of my favorites. I had the VIP. He and his band were super cool, answered questions for, let's say, 45 minutes, and then took pictures with us. And at 76 years old, he hasn't lost a step. The show lasted 2.5 hours with a 15-minute intermission. They played everything you would expect. They kind of intertwined some video with Emerson and Lake, but mostly it was his live band. And one thing I'd say about all 3 of these shows, all these artists were in their 70s, so the crowd's older. But they're the diehard fans. And, man, we just had such good camaraderie at every show. Eagles are in New Orleans tomorrow at Jazz Fest from 5 till 7. So I'm on the fence about that one, but it'd be a good time to see the Eagles outside of Las Vegas. So that would be the cool thing with that. But there you go. I just wanted to shout out to those bands.
Yeah, Barry, the Carl Palmer thing you saw, that was not the ELP thing with him using the screens, right? It was a different band, right?
It was both. He had a live band with him, and the guys were out there for basically the whole show, but they kind of interspersed it sometimes even between the same song where they would show Emerson and Lake. But his current guitar player, when they did have vocals, his current guitar player did the vocals. Carl even sang a tune, which was totally shocking. But, yeah, they do entwine that in the set a little bit. But it's not just him playing to a video at all. They do it in a really, really cool, tasteful way.
Yeah, because there is also, and thank you, Barry, tying in with my No Band Ever Ends narrative. Obviously, Greg Lake and Keith Emerson, the other 2 pieces of ELP, have left us. They are no longer alive. But I know that Carl Palmer has been pushing out a tribute basically to ELP that will feature him with those guys on screens. And, not necessarily a hologram show, but a projection show. So I don't know what the status of that is, but it sounds like what our caller there just saw was something a bit different. As far as Zebra is concerned, they have been out touring by their standards way more extensively than they have in many, many years. For the longest time, Zebra would play in their home areas, which are basically New Orleans, where they're from, and New York, where they've been for 40 years. But they've gotten out there, and, last weekend, I was supposed to host a show with Zebra in Los Angeles that I had a conflict and could not do because I was with Cheap Trick in Arizona last Saturday. But those guys even made it as far as playing the West Coast, and I can tell you, Zebra is a band that has been around since the early 80s. And I believe, rough count, they've only got like 4 studio albums because they make a record like every 10 years. But I did hear new music from them. I heard a new song. So they take forever, but they are coming with new music. And as our caller said, they even played a few live. Let's go to Dean, who's in West Virginia, joining us now on Trunk Nation. Hi, Dean.
Hey, Eddie. Good afternoon, man.
Hey, man.
Hey, I was wondering, so often you and many of us talk about our disdain for the phrase hair metal. And it's pretty much universal now. I think we're over that one.
Let me stop you there. I have a disdain for it, and I have a dislike for it, and I don't use it. However, what's interesting is in recent years, there are some fans and even some bands that use it positively as a rally call or as a defining thing. I don't necessarily do that. I don't feel right about doing that. But what's interesting is there's a lot of fans that use that term now very positively as a term of endearment.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good, I guess. My question has to do with bands that don't necessarily fit in with the hair metal genre. Bands such like Love Hate, Wild Hearts, King's X, Galactic Cowboys they're not 80s style hair metal, quote unquote. They're not necessarily alternative or grunge. What would they be categorized as? What would be a middle ground that some of these bands like Love Hate or King's X or Wild Hearts would fit into?
I just call them hard rock. Like every one of those bands, I would just call hard rock bands.
That's where I'm at too. I was just wondering. The question came from a friend of mine too, and I was like, well, I don't know. Let's ask an expert. Well,
I'll tell you that, Dean, it's an interesting thing. And as I mentioned, there are people that use, and to your point, Dean, that's exactly why I don't use the term, because it became a blanket term for every band with long hair that came out in the 80s or early 90s, even if they didn't fit what people would consider to be that sound. And I think that's where there's so many problems with it. But again, to each their own. I mean, use whatever you want, but that's why I have always been pretty adamant against using it, because it just became this thing where, like the bands you mentioned and even others, like, I don't know, take a band like Saigon Kick, who were very different, but they got lumped in with it. If you want to go earlier, a band like Tesla, who to me were always just a jeans and t-shirt, 2-guitar hard rock band. They got lumped into it. So it became this umbrella term, and I think people forget that the origins of that term, hair metal, hair band, are very negative. It was not a term born out of endearment. It was a term born to shit on these bands and make them categorized as all image with no songs or ability. And that's just not true. But over the decades, where it started as this very negative term to marginalize them and mock them, there are some that have embraced it and think it's great and run with it. And there's fans constantly. I mean, when I do my Hair Nation show on Monday, 90% of the callers will be like, oh man, I love hair metal. I love hair bands. And again, at this point, I don't even comment on it anymore because to each their own, but I don't think they realize the origins of it and how disparaging and damaging it was to these bands at one point, and how long it took them to get past that and have a career again. And that's why it bothers me so much, because I know what it did to the bands that it impacted, and it impacted many. So that's where I land on it. But again, if people feel it's just the right way to capsulize that era, but as you just pointed out, there's a lot of bands that get thrown in that had nothing to do with that, image-wise or musically.
Right. Great answer. Thank you very much.
All right, Dean. Well, thank you. Thanks for calling in. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'll let you in on a little info in case you guys didn't know this, and I've mentioned this before. So as you know, this show is called Trunk Nation. And my show on Mondays that I do on Hair Nation is called Trunk Nation. So 6 live shows a week I do here on Sirius XM, and they're all branded Trunk Nation. And what you may not know is that name did not come from me. I did not come up with that name. I'll tell you the quick story of that. So when I started on satellite radio, which is now 26 years ago, 43 years overall in radio, 26 on satellite. And of course, when I started back in 2000 doing satellite radio and adding that in, Sirius and XM were 2 different companies. They were competing companies. And I was on XM, and I was on the Boneyard channel, because Boneyard, which is now known as Ozzy's Boneyard, was an XM channel. So you had channels that were XM, and you had channels that were Sirius, and those channels, when the companies merged, were merged in. Some stayed, some went away because there was redundancy, right? So that's how that all worked. So I was on Boneyard doing a weekly show for XM. Companies merge. I stayed on Boneyard doing a weekly show. And then when Boneyard became Ozzy's Boneyard, I had to be moved. It's so ridiculous. You couldn't make it up, but I'll leave it at just I had to be moved. So they said to me, we're going to move you to Hair Nation, just one number down. So I went from 38 to 39. And, you know, even when I was doing that weekly show on Boneyard, it was the same show. It's the same exact show that I do now on Hair Nation on Mondays. It's, you know, it's a wide variety. It's talk, it's requests, it's whatever. So the program director at the time, who's no longer with the company, when this move happened, he said to me, you know, he goes, yeah, just do your thing, man. Do the same show. Do what you've always been doing. That's what people listen to you for, you know, do. And I go, yeah, but it doesn't work for me because I'm not going to use the Hair Nation name, because I don't want to be, you know, locked into what people perceive as hair metal. I do a wider thing. You know, I love that type of music. I have no problem. But, you know, I want to also be able to do Anthrax and Slayer and new bands and whatever. And he goes, yeah, fine. I go, well, it's not going to work for me to say Hair Nation. I don't want that branding. And at that time, he even admitted that at the time they were thinking of changing the name of the channel because they were having problems getting artists who had a problem with the hair branding to go on that channel, which that never, the name never changed, obviously. But he said to me at that time, it's a gentleman by the name of Greg Steele, who was the program director then, no longer here with this channel, no longer with this company, but I still hear from him, see him every once in a while. So anyway, he said to me, He goes, yeah, I understand. And we may have to change the name of the channel at some point anyway. But he goes, you know what? When you're on, just call it Trunk Nation. That came from him. And I said, okay. He said, yeah. He goes, so you do whatever you want, just like you've always been doing. The one thing I've always had was autonomy. It's the only thing I pretty much insist on for the most part. And he said, do your thing. He said, just call it Trunk Nation. When you're on, it's Trunk Nation on Sirius XM 39. I go, okay. So that's what it has been ever since, and that's what it still is. And then when this show started, which is now 10 years ago, initially on a channel, a music talk channel called Volume, which is no longer going, which is why I got moved to Faction Talk. The program director who started that and started me on a daily rock talk show, Roger Coletti, who also is no longer with the company, I said to Roger, I said, well, what do you want to call this show that I'm going to do every day as a rock talk show? And he said, just call it Trunk Nation. I was like, you want to use the same name that I'm doing the weekly show over? He goes, yeah. He goes, that works. Do it. So in both instances, I did not name any of the Trunk Nation thing, but it was born out of my refusal and the fact that I just didn't think it worked to use Hair Nation, hair branding. So that's how adamant I was and am about it. And it's only because, again, I saw and see how damaging it was to these artists. Because it was born out of the bands in the early 90s, the alternative bands, the grunge bands, goofing on that music. It's nothing but hairspray and makeup, and it's not real, it's not valid, which is just not true. If you really look at every era of music, there is a fashion and a look that goes with all of it. The bands of the 50s had a certain look. The Beatles, when they came out on the scene, had a certain look. You move into the 70s, there's a very 70s look, whether it's kind of like a hippie vibe, tie-dye, bell-bottom jeans, whatever. There's a look. Then you got into the 80s, and there was a very over-the-top look. Hairspray, makeup, spandex, which, by the way, it wasn't only rock bands that looked like that. And by the way, everyone looked like that. I point to this all the time. Look at Ozzy Osbourne in the video for Shot in the Dark. He is wearing a sequin gown and eyeliner and his hair sprayed out. That is the Prince of Darkness. That is one of the architects of what we know as heavy music. And there he is in the mid-'80s dancing around in a sequin gown, eyeliner, and hair-sprayed out hair. Everyone looked like that. But Winger and many others took the bullets more than anyone. Because they were hair metal, hair band. When in reality, Winger and Kip were some of the most talented people from that genre. But they got buried because of what they look like. It's no different than what everyone else looked like at that time, including somebody like Ozzy Osbourne. So that's why I find the whole thing just kind of funny. And, I listen with my ears, not my eyes. I don't care what anybody looks like. I don't care what the image was at the time. It's like, whatever. Is it good music? Does it still hold up? Are the songs good? It's all that mattered to me from day one till now. Here's Mark in California. What's going on, Mark?
Hey, Eddie. I wanted to apologize for the other day. I was just so overwhelmed because I was calling about Ace Frehley, just trying to share some moments. It was kind of like Ralph Crandon for me because I was kind of starstruck because I never got to talk to you before. But I was trying to to pitch my book because I do think it's important. I'm an author. And
okay, Mark, okay, you've done that already. What is your call about today, though?
Yeah, well, the only thing is I just wanted to see if there was a way I could send my book to you so you could look at it. I want to send it to you free, and then just you give your opinion, and then if you like it, then maybe you might pass the word along to other people,
All right, Mark, we're going to put you on hold, and you can I can give you my address. I can't promise you anything, but I'm happy to check out your book. Here is Jeff in Canada joining us right now. Jeff, where in Canada are you?
I'm in Nova Scotia.
Welcome. What's going on, man?
Halifax. I got to say, Ed, I've been listening to you for years, mostly on the replay, never have a chance to call. But after going to that Triumph concert on Tuesday night, I felt compelled.
You saw Triumph this past Tuesday?
Yes. Yeah, and it was. They're not.
So they haven't. They played those two shows in Florida. Then I know most of the dates are there in Canada, and then they come into the east of the U.S. for the bulk of them. But was Phil X playing the show that you were at, or did they have the other guitar player?
They had the other guitar player. I think it was like a Darren or something. They said the name so fast that I missed it. But when we got there, I seen the guitar player, and I said, well, that's not Phil X. But anyway, he did amazing. Like, you would never know that he was a replacement guitar player. Like, it was an amazing show. Amazing.
Yeah, they must have known. I'm sure they had to be prepared for this. Phil must have told them that he was going to get pulled away for Bon Jovi. Again, Phil is not going to jeopardize his gig with Bon Jovi, who are in rehearsals right now. So John calls, Phil went, which I understand, but he must have given those guys the heads up that there was going to be an issue because they had somebody to plug in pretty quick, and that's not something you just drop somebody in on. So I'm sure they had that kind of planned out in advance.
Yeah, and he sang one of the songs too and did a real good job. I can't remember which song it was, but I know a couple of them were sang. Todd Kern sang one, and he did an amazing job. You wouldn't even think it wasn't Rick Emmett himself singing, but anyway.
What were your thoughts overall of seeing them again in this configuration?
Oh, I loved it. They played fantastic. They played fantastic, man. Honestly, if you wanted to really critique it, I couldn't really tell the difference from the sound when I went in 1985. So,
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I look forward to hopefully catching a show. We'll see how this goes because they don't have anything west at all, and I think that what Rick said last time we had him on was that they were kind of waiting to see how this all felt and how this is all going to go before they added additional shows and how they were feeling. So it's still early going, but we'll see if they roll out more dates maybe towards later in the year because they're not getting to the West at all on these initial runs.
No, and Gil, he would do like a couple songs. He played the drums. Both drums were actually absolutely in sync. And then he'd disappear for a little while, and then he'd come back out and sing another song and walk around while he was singing. It was actually really, really cool to see. And
good.
But they sounded fantastic. I hope they listen to this show because it was great. And Rick Emmett's little speech being heartfelt about how much he missed it. It was really good.
Yeah, I've seen some of that online, and I also saw some of the stuff they've been posting, and they just seem to genuinely be embracing it again and really be enjoying it again. So thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that report. We're coming up on a break here. But yeah, the thing with Triumph is going to be interesting to see where they go. Now, the other couple things on Triumph. So in the early going of these dates, we see them now as what is basically a 5-piece band with Rick and Gil and either Phil X or the other player who I'm sorry we don't have his name, and then Todd Kearns, Brent Fitz. We have yet to see Mike Levine show up, which is somewhat surprising, especially considering they are predominantly playing in Canada right now, and obviously Mike and the band is based in Toronto. So the fact that they have not, we've not seen Mike is unfortunate, because then you'd have the original three up there. But then the bigger question is, if this goes well and continues to go well, where does it go from here? Meaning, do they add dates? Do they consider new music? Are they back, or are they just doing a run for the nostalgia of it? I'm not sure. The really cool moments I've been seeing online, I saw something this morning where Rick Emmett was doing the beginning of Magic Power, which is probably Triumph's biggest song. And the audience is just singing it back to him, which is just really, really cool. And by the way, I thought Rick sounded great. He's been a guy that's been super, super honest about his ability to sing that stuff now. And he seems to have really gotten in shape to be able to do it, because that stuff is in the moon high. So we'll continue to watch this. We'll continue to see if they add dates. I'm not sure where and when I'm going to be able to catch a show, but I certainly hope to do so. And I love those guys, so I'm glad they're having fun, and it seems to be going well. Maybe we'll get them on at some point with a little update and a little report. By the way, as we mentioned, next week, there's going to be 2 best of shows. I'm taking next week, Wednesday and Thursday, off. And one of those shows on Wednesday, you are going to get a replay of Mike, Rick, and Gil all on talking about Triumph and this tour and coming back. It was the day they announced this reunion, which of course is now happening. Real quick, also, there was, and I mentioned this yesterday, the first U.S. Guns N' Roses show happened last night in Hollywood, Florida, at the Hard Rock. So be interesting to hear if anybody calls in or gets through that was at that last night with a report. I did read an online review that said pretty much all positive things, and they said that the show clocked in at about 3 hours, which we know GNR have averaged doing 3-hour shows when it is their own show, meaning not on a festival bill. When I saw them in Brazil last month, it was, at the end of a long day of bands on a festival date, they did 2.5. So I think they shave a half an hour when they are on a festival. But it looks like on their standalone headline shows, they are back to doing 3-hour shows, which is just, some feel too long. Some love it. But it looked like, according to the review I read, they clocked in at close to 3 hours last night in Hollywood, Florida, going on stage at 8 and playing pretty much right till 11. I don't believe there was an opening act there either. Now, that was a casino date. I know when they play here in Vegas at Allegiant, they've got the Black Crowes opening. So when they go into the stadium dates, which are, much bigger capacity, the capacity on the show they did last night was a theater 7,000. It was a large theater. But that obviously, when you go from a building that holds 7,000 to a building that holds 70,000, you're going to want to put a little more meat on the bone in terms of an extra act or two helping you sell some tickets. And obviously they're putting name bands on in support on the big stadium shows. All right, good stuff here. And we got to the phones early, so we still have a whole nother hour to go here on Trunk Nation. So let's get a break in right now. Joel, what are you going to play for everybody?
We're going to hear a little bit from the new Crobot record. It's called Supermoon. Also, I forgot to mention it's Felix Hanneman's birthday. Since Zebra came up, he's 73 today.
Oh, I'll have to text Felix and wish him a happy birthday. Happy birthday to him, one of the 3 original members of Zebra, of course, the band's bass player. Zebra, one of the incredibly rare bands, especially that have been around that long, that still have all original members. The lineup has never changed. When the new music is ready, we'll certainly have those guys on. All right, cool. Let's get a break. We'll come back. Another hour to play with. More of your calls coming up here on a
Eddie Trunk.
This has been a real treat today.
Sirius XM's
Blew my damn head off, dude. Unreal.
Faction Talk. This is Free for All Friday. Any band, any question, any opinion. Here's your host, Eddie Trunk.
Long live Eddie Trunk.
Thank you, Jesse James Dupree. Appreciate that. All right, we're back. Another hour left to go here for the week as we get ready to close out another fun week of hanging with you guys and talking rock. Again, if you missed any of our guests from the week, you know the deal. Go grab them on the app. We had Johnny Van Zant and Damon Johnson of Leonard Skinner. We had Phil Mogg of UFO yesterday. Anyone I'm missing there, Joel?
Wendy.
Oh, Wendy Dio. Yes, the Dio Cancer Fund event coming up at the end of this month on the 31st. The Rock for Ronnie, headlined by Lita Ford, that I'll headline. Autry Museum in Southern
Russell
California.
Allen.
And Russell Allen of Symphony X, who called in talking about a new solo song for autism awareness he did. So, yeah, we had some great guests this week. Everything's on the app to get caught up if you missed it. And please do so. Again, just punch in my name, punch in Trunk Nation. Also, don't forget, video content of some of the interviews is on YouTube now at Eddie Trunk on that channel, so you can take a look at that. Joel's been putting up some clips. Joel launched a TikTok for this show a few weeks ago. That is at Trunk Nation SXM if you'd like to give that a follow. And, of course, my own social media is simply my name on all platforms, at Eddie Trunk. All right, let's get back over to the phones, see what you guys want to talk about here in our final hour. We will pick up the conversation with Steve in Tampa. What's going on, Steve?
Hey, Edward. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
Hey, real quick, I didn't tell the producer, but a little while ago you mentioned Perner and Soul Asylum, and remember that I prompted the question that he answered, I don't know what I'm doing on this tour. I take pride in that. And you said it was the English beat. It was not. It was he did little baseball stadium, minor league baseball stadium tour. It was with Three Doors Down Collective Soul in July of 2018 here in Tampa. I couldn't do it, but yeah. So.
Oh, I know that he also did a tour with the English Beat opening. I thought that was with that trip, but
I think,
okay.
Yeah, I think it was interchangeable, maybe some of those bands, you know. So.
Well, I can say this. It's not announced yet, but I'm very, very pumped because there's going to be a Soul Asylum show here in Vegas that I'm going to be hosting that's going to be outdoors, that's going to be coming up later, a little later in the summer, and that should get announced in the next week or so. So as soon as it is, I'll be able to share those details, but I'm very, very excited about that and looking forward to seeing those guys as always.
Yeah, my buddy lives out there. And Dave just did a solo thing or acoustic, Soul Asylum acoustic in Red Bank. But moving on, speaking of Soul Asylum, and I got two other, they were on Twin Tone Records, released their album on Twin Tone 3 years before. My most underrated, of course, The Replacements. I'll just tell people, start with Pleased to Meet Me and the couple before that. I just think Paul Westerberg wrote great songs, and you know how I feel about them. And
hey, Steve, because I don't know that history all that well of that whole Minneapolis Twin Tone scene, but did the Soul Asylum predated The Replacements? They came first?
No. Maybe I mumbled, but Replacements were 3 years before. Their 81 was their Twin Tone record release, and then I think it was 84, I just looked up, was Soul Asylum's first record on Twin Tone. So, but they were like a little here and there. But I love Paul Westerberg's songs. But yesterday you were talking about Fair Warning, and that was my first show ever, August 18th, Hollywood Sportatorium in arenas. They toured. The year before, they played the same arena, Hollywood Sportatorium, August 9th, 1980. The next year that my show I saw was 1981, August 18th. My brother saw the Women and Children there, Fair Warning. Point is, Van Halen built their following. They were in your town every year. And I looked early on, in Van Halen 2 tour in South Florida, they played headline, but the Miami High Life Fronton. But after that, they played at arenas. And in fact, Diver Down tour, they did 2 nights at the Sportatorium, as well as 1984, the year before. So they always love Florida. Fair Warning was my first show. I was blown away. Still the best show I ever saw. They opened with On Fire, and it was just amazing. They got a bunch of calls. Dig the show, man. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that very much. So that what Steve is referring to is we were having a conversation about Van Halen because the other day, was it yesterday or Wednesday, was the 45th anniversary of Fair Warning, the fourth album. And I was saying on the air that I was trying to remember. First time I saw Van Halen, I was pretty sure it was on the Fair Warning tour. I was in high school at that time. And I was trying to figure out what tour they became across the country arena headliners. And I felt like it was Fair Warning. Because they certainly did some arenas on women and children. We had a caller from Pasadena yesterday who said they were even almost at an arena level in that area by Van Halen 2. So we were trying to figure that out at the time. And a friend of mine from New York who lives here in Vegas now, a photographer by the name of Dave Plastic, sent me a note and some photos because he said that in the New York, New Jersey market, which of course is where I grew up and Dave grew up, Van Halen played Nassau Coliseum on Women and Children as a headliner. And that is an arena. But I would never have gone to that because in 1980, at 15, 16 years old, I was not going from New Jersey to Long Island. Nassau Coliseum is in Long Island. There's no way my parents would have allowed me to do that. It's over a couple bridges. It's not convenient at all. But they did play Madison Square Garden for the first time in 1981, and that was Fair Warning. So that pretty much, and again, I don't have all my ticket stubs in front of me, but that pretty much convinced me that for me, the first VH show for me was definitely Fair Warning at the Garden. I was at that for sure. Because I would have never have gone to Long Island at that young. I mean, I wouldn't even have been driving yet, so I couldn't have. But Madison Square Garden was different because even living in New Jersey, you could get a train from where I lived that would take you from my hometown right into Penn Station under Madison Square Garden. And I did that countless times for Rangers games and for concerts. You get on the train in 45 minutes, you'd be at Madison Square Garden. You didn't even have to go outside. You just went up an escalator and you're in the building. So it was super convenient. Still can do that now, although it's about 5 times the price that it was back then. But that's how I went to a lot of shows younger. Somebody older would keep an eye on me, but I get on the train. Never had to get in a car. And I also remember in high school, I had a teacher. It was my history teacher. Shout out to Mr. C, Mr. Chmurka, who was a writer. He's a big rock fan, and he was a writer. And for the local rock newspaper. And he was a big Van Halen fan, and he used to always talk to me about VH. And I think he even interviewed them back then. He was like, most of you guys probably when you were in high school, there was like the cool teacher. He was the cool teacher. I remember he was the first guy to tell me about Van Halen because he used to bust my balls for being such a big Kiss fan. He's like, I got a band that's going to blow them away. We used to always get into arguments about it. I still hear from him every once in a while too. Which I was thinking about this. If I'm 61 and he was my high school teacher, I mean, he's got to be in his... I mean, even if he was like 25, 30, he's got to be up there. Good for him, man. Let's go to Indiana. Say hello to Tom joining us today on Trunk Nation. What's up, Tom?
Hey, Eddie. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, Tom. Thanks.
Good. Hey, I wanted to talk about Brother Kane here real quick.
Sure.
I saw him about a week ago, Thursday, at a little place in Wapakoneta, Ohio. They were headed to Detroit, and they were doing a Thursday night at this little Roadhouse club, probably 100, 150 people. It was packed, no stage, and it was incredible. They had Rob Affuso playing drums. They had Ryan Spencer Cook playing rhythm, and then the original Brother Kane bass player.
Whoa. Hold on a second. Rob Affuso from Skid Row was playing drums in Brother Kane?
Yes.
Are you sure?
I'm positive, yes.
Yeah. That is I had not heard that at all from anyone. The usual drummer in Brother Kane is Jared Pope, who plays with Kiefer. Now maybe he couldn't do it because Kiefer was out.
Yeah, Kiefer was out. That's exactly right.
Wow.
It was crazy. I saw him. I mean, this is a little place, Eddie. This is, we're right there. And I'm looking back there, and the drum kit's not even on the riser, really. And I'm like, man, that looks like Rob Affuso. And sure enough, it was. And he was
so
killer.
they introduced him.
Yes.
Well, that's good. Good for Rob, man. I love Rob, and Rob is, Rob did a couple things with Sebastian Bach, the couple songs or videos from Baz's last record, and Rob has had a band that he's been playing in forever, ever since he's been out of Skid Row for 30 years now, in the upstate New York area where he lives, or and I know he's had they do weddings and they do jams. It's called Soul System, but he's not been in like a band of original music ever since Skid Row. So that's really cool to hear, even if it was a small gig that he was out there doing that. That's great.
Yeah, he was locked in, and it sounded great. The band sounded great. And Damon, I was glad to hear that. I didn't hear it, but I was glad that you had him on last week or whenever. But there's not a nicer guy in this business than Damon Johnson, and I'm so happy that he got that Skinner gig. He was telling me, last week we played in front of like 60,000 in São Paulo, Brazil, a couple weeks ago. I think you were there, yeah.
I introed him. I was there. Yeah.
And he's playing this little club, right? And that just says, and you would have thought he was playing Madison Square Garden. He was into it. It was awesome. I mean, it was really, really great. And that record, Magnolia Medicine, is killer. The songs on it, the really, really good songs. The production's good. And he debuted the Prince Charming track that's the tribute to Gary Rossington. First time he'd ever played it live. And that was really cool. And, I just want to tell people, go out and pick up that record, man. That's all self-supported, self-produced by them. And, that's what keeps them going, and it's a great record. It's a great record. So.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Appreciate that, Tom. Appreciate that report. And you mentioned you didn't hear the interview with Damon. Again, you can just go to the app and hear it if you'd like over the weekend, whenever you want. Let's go to Bob, who's in Rochester, New York. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, Ed. How are you doing?
Good, Bob. What's happening?
We're on our way to the Columbia M3 concert to see Tom Kiefer's first show of the year.
Oh, so, nice. Yeah, that's tomorrow, right?
That is tomorrow, yes.
Cool. Well, you have a good time there.
Thank you. The reason I called, a while ago you had a call in where first concert you ever went to, the last concert, and the next concert. Mm-hmm. So I called in. My first concert was Miley Hatchet with the Rochester War Memorial. Second concert was Tom Kiefer in Daytona, Florida. And my next concert was Tom Kiefer in Vegas. So me and my wife fly to Vegas, and we're in the Westgate, and doesn't Tony Higbee walk by? And I said, "Hey, Tony, what's going on?" And he walked right up to me, and the first thing he said to me, he goes, "Was that you on Eddie Trunk Show?" And I go, "Yes, it was." So I thought that was really cool that he was listening.
Yeah, Tony's a listener, and Tony's a great guy and a very talented guy. I'm going to be hosting a show with Tom Kiefer and LA Guns and Houston at the Warehouse Rooftop coming up in June. So that's next month already, which is crazy.
Yep. I actually met you in Texas at the Rooftop when Torobi was there and Love and War was there. And I don't know if you remember, it was so hot in there. Love and War, the lead singer, couldn't even finish. It was so hot. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do indeed. Indeed. Well, Bob, you enjoy, you drive safely, and you enjoy M3 tomorrow and seeing Tom. It's always always puts on a great show.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. There's Bob headed to the M3 Festival, which is in Columbia, Maryland, and for the first time ever is just one day. Normally, there's times where it's been 3 days. There's times it's been 2 days, day and a half. But this year, just tomorrow, headlined by Tom Kiefer. I'm going to be doing hosting a show with Kiefer in June on the 27th in Houston. LA Guns in support. Also on June 25th, which is the Thursday before, I'm in Dallas at the Guitar Sanctuary in McKinney doing a speaking show. So come on out to that. Those tickets are on sale now, and all ticket holders get free beer. My show is way more entertaining when you're drinking. Making it easy for you with free beer. And also, June, looking down my schedule real quick, on the 13th, speaking of UFO, we had Phil Mogg on yesterday at the Arcada Theater in St. Charles, Illinois. First time going there, June 13th, I will be hosting Lights Out, the UFO tribute that will feature Andy Parker, UFO's actual drummer, on drums. It's got Mark Bowles singing. It's going to be real good. They've beefed up that band, and it's a great UFO tribute with an actual UFO member in it. So that'll be fun, and looking forward to my first visit to the Arcada. I hear great things about that venue, so hope to see you if you're in that area. Let's go to North Carolina. Here's Jim joining us right now. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Eddie. Good afternoon. Happy Friday to you, sir.
You too.
Hey, wanted to talk to you about an underrated artist. This gentleman came up a few months ago when you were talking about new artists. He's not new. And you played a clip of the song, and you were like, hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We need more of that. The guy's name is Anthony Gomes. Last name is Gomes. The dude's 55 years old. He's been putting albums out since 1998. Put out 18. I got 13 of them. This guy is just a basic, no bullshit, just kick-ass blues-based guitar player. It's just him playing the guitar, singing, bass player, and a drummer. He just totally kicks ass. Sadly, he's only been able to do, club level stuff. I'm actually going to see him June 6th in Durham at a place called Stanzix. He just put out an album called Praise the Loud. That's the song you guys played a little clip of, and you're like, yeah, we need more of that. Just basic kick-ass rock and roll. Check him out, dude. He rocks. He totally rocks.
Where's he from? I know the name's come up a couple times, Jim, and I've seen him actually show up now in my social media feed because, of course, these phones listen to you and start feeding you stuff. But where is he from?
Yeah. He's originally from Canada. I think now he's living in the Detroit area. But, again, just killer blues guitar, great gravelly blues voice. He's got some really good lyrics. He's got a song called The Whiskey Made Me Do It. Great lyrics. Another song called White Trash Princess. And again, he just put out an album a couple months ago called Praise the Loud. So you might want to check out that song. Or he's got another great, well, the whole album is great, but the last song on the album is called Blame It on Rock and Roll. Killer stuff, man. You'll love it.
All right. I'm definitely aware of him, and I've definitely seen some stuff, so I'll continue to check it out. Thank you, Jim. Jim would qualify that in his underrated category, of course. Sadly, there are so many artists like that, so many out there that are not household names, that when they play are playing at the club level, and they're just immensely talented, and in many cases have been doing it for a very, very, very long time, but just cannot get over that hump to the next level for whatever reason. Guy that comes to mind for me that would fit that category, that is next level talented, would be Richie Kotzen, who has been doing it forever and is still, and super regarded among musicians. I just saw a post this morning. Reb Beach ran into Richie somewhere in Brazil, was like, this guy's one of the most talented guys, yada, yada, yada. And so is Reb, of course, but still. There's just so many people like that. They've been doing it forever. And, they're not people that come up on these greatest lists or the top 10 greatest or whatever, but they, in many cases, are maybe even way more talented, but it just takes so many more variables than just talent, as we've talked about many, many times. But I'll definitely check out that artist. It's impossible to keep up with all of them, but having a show like this where everybody can share is always a good thing, and even helps me out from time to time. Let's go to our Mexico correspondent. Here's Kraus in Mexico City. What's happening, buddy?
Hey, third time a charmer. I finally got in this week. Hola, Eddie, Joel, Sebastian. First, I have three things, but really quickly. Rudy told me that he's going to take care of us for the LA show. Are you in touch with him now?
I've not heard from him yet, but I absolutely plan to go, so thank you for that. And I've also heard from some of the Youngblood people, too.
We're taking care of. I'll send you an email. So really quick, on September 19, 1980, my father took me to the New Haven Coliseum in New Haven, Connecticut to see Blue Oyster opening for Black Sabbath Heaven and Hell tour. That was my first show ever. That night I fell in love with Ronnie's voice and charisma. My father and Ronnie, speed forward a couple of years later, my father and Ronnie died at the same clinic, at the MD Anderson Clinic in Houston, Texas, of the same type of cancer. So the Dio Cancer Fund is very close to my heart, and now thanks to you, am I able to do something sizable for that fund in honor of both my father and Ronnie. Thank you.
I'm sorry for your loss, Kraus, and that's wonderful that you're thinking that way, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The following year, July 17, 1981, a 17-year-old Eddie Trunk and a then 18-year-old Werner Kraus most probably crossed paths at the Day at the Garden, our first Van Halen show. We paid tickets from $15 for our tickets. Fair Warning Tour, Happy 45th, Fair Warning. And my first Van Halen album I bought for the same reason that you did. My next Van Halen show was Legendary, the U.S. Festival in 1983. And my Ace story, really quick. This is a very well-documented rock Spinal Tap real-life anecdote. The main character told it in this show recently to you on January 20th of 2007 in the now-defunct House of Blues on Sunset Boulevard. Alice Cooper was having a show. The foundation room was full of rock royalty, Nikki Sixx, Gene Simmons, Doug McKagan, Brian May, John Ray Rotten, and a crazy Mexican called Kraus. Alice is playing, and the snake takes a huge dump on his back. Do you remember this?
Well, I wasn't. I don't think I was there. But was Red Beach?
But Alice told it in this show.
He told it.
Alice told the story in this show.
Well, what happened? So the story about the snake taking a huge dump was told to me by Reb Beach on That Metal Show, because Reb told this story, and I'll never forget it, on TV with me. And he said he almost threw up while he was playing because Alice was holding the snake, and the snake took a dump on his pedal board, and he said he almost threw up right on stage because it smelled so bad.
So the whole audience is either laughing or in shock, and the stagehand is vomited and everything. Behind me, I hear a familiar cackle, and I hear a familiar voice, and I hear somebody say, "That's what I call a shit show," or something like that. I turn around and I see Ace and Monique. And of course I went to talk to him, man. Rest in orbit, happy birthday, our beloved Spain, man. I owe him in my career, man. Most underrated for me, The Babies, our mutual friend in LA Guns, and UFO. Happy weekend to everybody from Mexico. I'll see you in
have
LA.
a good weekend. Thank you, man. Yeah, well, I look forward to meeting you. Thank you, buddy. We'll be in touch. Thank you. There's Kraus in Mexico checking in. So, yeah, the story about the snake, Alice Cooper's snake shitting on stage, was told to me. I'm sure it probably happened more than once, But the story that I know about it was when Reb Beach was in Alice's band, and Reb told the story on that metal show. And of course, Krause also mentioning Ace, because for those that have been that listen every day, this past Monday we did a show where people called in with Ace memories, because Monday was Ace's 75th birthday, so we celebrated him on Monday as well. Again, get caught up on any shows using the app. I know I say it all the time, but people still don't do it sometimes. And then speaking of Reb telling that story on that metal show, I got to mention this again. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on, but I love it. But somebody out there in the beautiful land of social media, because look, social media can be the devil and be completely wrong and used for wrong reasons and abusive and spread misinformation and spread fake stuff left and right. It's tons of it on there, tons of haters, tons of nonsense, tons of out of context, tons of just fake stuff. But there's times it's really great. Obviously, it's a two-edged sword, right? So you got to look at it that way and keep in mind what you're, seeing and hearing and what have you. But for me, at least, the good thing is whoever is starting to spread clips of that metal show in the last month, it is like becoming a thing. And I am hearing from people on almost a daily basis about these clips from that show that are popping up in their feed, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I am hearing from people who never saw the show because it's been off the air 10 years, who are now just seeing it. And a lot of them are like, wow, you looked so young then. Well, yeah, because depending on what you're looking at, it could be as old as 20 years ago at this point. But, people are like, wow, I just saw this clip. You were talking to this one or that one, or you're doing this stump the trunk thing or whatever. So, again, I don't have anything to do with it. I don't control it, but I'm glad it's happening because it's bringing back great memories for people. Or in some cases, it's telling people about the show. And look, I'm going to be honest, you never know where that stuff leads. It gets enough traction, enough people talking, it might light a fire one day for us to do it again if somebody wakes up. So I'm all for it, but I don't know who's doing it. I don't know where the content's coming from. I don't know where the clips are coming from, but you got my blessings. I think it's great. And I don't even see it that much, but I hear from people because, again, it's all algorithm stuff these days. And it would be amazing if VH1 and whoever owns them would put the shows out. They're just sitting there somewhere in some vault doing nothing. But obviously some fans still have them on their DVRs or whatever, and they're somehow starting to post them and circulate them, which is great. So maybe one day the Reb Beach story will come out with the shitting snake, because I remember that clearly from when we did the show, because Reb told it in a very, very funny way. And what Krause is mentioning there is, Krause is connected to the band The Warning, who we've had on the show. He helped make that happen. He's friends with their manager. They are playing here in Vegas and in LA as support to Youngblood. And fingers crossed, we'll be doing some stuff with both artists around that. And I plan to see both live for the first time hopefully in LA at the Greek. Maybe also here in Vegas as well, but definitely at the show in LA. So appreciate the help there, Krause. We'll see what happens as we get a little bit closer, but we're now in that month. And it's crazy what's going on with that tour. Youngblood is like sold out everywhere. And The Warning certainly playing a role in that as well, because they are more than just an opening act in that instance. They do very, very well as well, and they are in the opening slot. So hell of a double bill of two emerging young rock artists that are really, really starting to make some noise, which is great to see. All right, thank you. Let's take another break. Joel, what do you want to play for people?
Oh, we'll hear the new single from Eric Gronwall. It's called Praying for a Miracle.
So Eric Gronwall, of course, was in a band called Heat, then made one record and did a year or two of touring with Skid Row, and has now been doing stuff as a solo artist. We'll hear a little bit of this, and we'll come back with more of your
discussions.
Sirius XM.
It's all good.
Faction Talk. Back to Free for All Friday.
Quite popular with the metal crowd.
Where no topic is off limits. Here's your host, Eddie Trunk.
When Eddie speaks, the world listens.
Sirius XM's Faction Talk.
I'm just realizing that Alice Cooper, so the Alice Cooper Chris Angel Magic Rock Extravaganza is happening for the final time, at least the final announced time, at the end of this month, May 21, 22, 23. I've not yet seen it, but I'm going to shoot to go on the 21st. And I just put out a note during the commercial break to see if Alice wants to maybe come into the Vegas studio when he is here. So I don't know, maybe fingers crossed we'll be able to make that happen, get Alice in person. I've had Alice on many times, of course, on the phone, but it'd be great to have him in person if he's here in Vegas for a bit. Last time he was at my party, a couple years ago. We had him, where I got to see him here in Vegas, actually hang out with him a bit. But yeah, who knows? Maybe that can happen. Also, speaking of Vegas, quick shout out to my buddies Count 77, Danny and Stoney and the crew. They are playing tonight here in Vegas, a free show down in old school Vegas, down on Fremont Street. So if you happen to be in this city and you're looking for something fun to do, Fremont Street is always a lot of fun. They're going on 9 o'clock tonight down there on Fremont, Count 77. So going to go down there myself and check them out. Always a fun show, fun hang as well. So just a little heads up if you happen to be in this area. All right, let's get back to the phones and finish up here for the week. And again, back live with you guys on Monday. We'll get started as usual, 3 o'clock Eastern. And joining me on Monday for the first time ever on the show, legendary drummer, legendary singer, and now going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist, Phil Collins, on Monday's show. Tuesday, Neil Sean of Journey, who I just saw here in Vegas the other night. All right, back to the calls. Here's Mark in Houston picking it up. Let's go. Mark, what do you got?
Hey, Eddie. How you doing today, man?
Good, man.
Good. I've been a long-time listener. It's first time calling, but I've actually met you a few times, but just wanted to call in for a couple things. One was just a quick report on Alter Bridge, who were here a few nights ago. And then secondly, it just kind of led to a thought about modern-day guitar heroes. And I'll start with the Alter Bridge piece first. They are great. Like you've seen Creed recently, and obviously it's the same guys with Miles singing, of course, but that wall of sound that you've described from Tremonti exists in Alter Bridge just as much. But what was even more impressive, and I'd seen Alter Bridge before, but you just always tend to forget, is how good Miles is playing the guitar. As much as he is a singer, he's such a great guitar player too. Their catalog, now how many ever albums they have, they seem like they had a pretty good variety of mix from the different albums. And it was great sound. And, the only thing I would say that was maybe a negative was the light show seemed a little chaotic and distracting at times, but on the whole, it was a great show. Filter opened up. They were great as well. Again, the lighting there was kind of weird because it was all backlit, so they were very hard to see. But as watching them, Alter Bridge, that is, I just kind of had this realization. We talked about, at Ace's birthday this week, and, we've lost a lot of our great guitar heroes in recent years, and just kind of got me thinking maybe of a top 5 idea of who are some of the modern day guitar heroes, maybe go back 20 years or 30 years to start from that qualification, and maybe saying like 95 on. who are the guys that are making the kids or people pick up a guitar and play today. For me, it was Eddie Van Halen. So, who are the guys today that are driving that? Who are your top 5 people out there that are the modern day guitar heroes? And that's all I got.
Yeah, that's a great one, Mark. That's a really good one. You set that parameter of 20, 30-year cap or whatever. I mean, off the top of my head, the guys in Avenged Sevenfold, I think, played a big role in that. I
Agreed.
think that, Sinister Gates, Zachy Vengeance, I mean, I think those guys, when they came out doing that dual guitar, lead guitar playing, there wasn't a lot of that at the time that Avenged came out. And whether you like that band or not, I think they played a big part in it. I think Dragon Force with Herman Lee probably played a big part there as well. But yeah, then that whole era of the Guitar Hero game with some of those newer bands that were newer at the time. And yeah, I mean, Tremonti is certainly not a new guitar player if you look back at the history of Alter Bridge or of Creed even, but I think Mark currently, it's so hard to say Mark is newer when he's in his 50s, but still, I mean, there's still people that are discovering what he is as a player. And I also think, and this really came to my attention seeing Creed so much in the last few years, Creed's and Mark's guitar playing in Creed is phenomenal, but there is hardly a Creed song that has a guitar solo in it. Like that era was very much about big chunky riffs, and we know that guitar solos were not really a thing at that time. People kind of frowned on them. But when you watch Mark play with Alter Bridge with Miles, who, as you rightfully point out, is also a great player, man, both of those guys, it's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you what I was really blown away, or just, I don't know if I'd noticed it before or not, but I noticed it the other night, was that as many of the solos that Mark does, I think Miles had as many, if not more, on the solo front. And there are more guitar solos, I think, in the Alter Bridge music. You're right. And I kind of picked that 30-year category or cap, if you will, because that would include, say, a Tremonti or something like that. Obviously he has his own signature guitar and PRS and whatnot. But Creed came around in the mid to late 90s, right? That's when they were starting to really hit. So they would fall in that 30-year category of, again, that modern day hero who's the influencer now.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And your point about Miles, and and thank you, Mark. I brought up Miles. Miles has brought this up many times on the air and off the air with me. Miles Kennedy, his whole deal is playing guitar. Like, he is all about guitar. He never wanted to be a singer frontman, but he was blessed with this phenomenal voice. And that's why so many people know him as a singer. But his passion is all about guitar playing. So for him, being an Alter Bridge, of course, he is the primary lead singer, but also plays a lot of guitar in that band and splits that duty with Tremonti. I think if you broke it down, Mark still has the majority of the lead guitar playing. But Mark will tell you what a talented player Miles is, and they're kind of different stylistically too, which makes it kind of cool. And then, of course, Miles now does his own solo shows where he's the only guitar player. And Mark, on record, is the only guitar player with Creed. But when Creed plays live, there is a second guitar player for the live show on stage with them, Eric Friedman. And same when Mark does his own band just under his name, Tremonti. So there's so many tentacles of this whole world, as we've talked about before, but it's all really, really good. It really is. And I'm trying to catch a Creed show. I'm not sure where I'm going to do it because they are predominantly in the East. I've been in the West, although I might be able to catch one of their shows on the East Coast based on my schedule because I might be back there for a few days. So I'm trying to sort through that. But I do know for a fact very soon there's going to be an announcement of more Alter Bridge dates in areas they are not currently hitting. Here's Jim in Western New York. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, Eddie. Wanted to talk to you about White Lion. You had mentioned the other day, you brought up their last album that was out in 91. And you had mentioned in the past the Great Wall of Nirvana, and that they couldn't really get anywhere because of grunge, but that album actually came out in spring, so a good 5-6 months before Nirvana. So I'm saying that scene was over before grunge. And I'm going to use myself as an example. I was in high school through the whole 83 through, let's say, 89 Motley Crue era. I was all in. For my 16th birthday in 1989, I got two things. I got tickets to see Motley Crue and Warrant on the Dr. Feelgood tour, and I got moving pictures. So I think for me, that whole thing peaked in like December of 89, and then by spring of 90, I was all Rush. So I was already out of the glam scene at 16 before grunge even hit. So I think we have to factor that in.
Well, the thing about that, though, is, I mean, you got into Rush very late because the first Rush album came out in 1974. So Rush
I get that.
Yeah, Rush didn't play a hand in changing anything. It was just for you personally, but Rush had existed by the mid-'80s for 10 years already, or then some.
Well, I'm not saying it was Rush in particular for everybody, but I just think if I look back at myself in high school, once 89 was over and the Crew had that run, I even saw a lot of my friends getting into other music even before grunge. Because that White Lion album that came out in, I think, March or April of 91, I had no interest in it, where I had purchased the other two White Lion albums, and I was a big fan. I had just already moved on even before grunge.
Sure, and that definitely, Jim, will happen. And thank you, Jim. I mean, people obviously, as they get older, their taste change and they develop a taste for other things, and they maybe find older music they never heard initially. Maybe they get more open-minded to newer genres of rock or newer genres of music and discover more. That's only natural. I mean, that certainly happened to me. It's happened to many people. But what we're talking about when I use that terminology of the Great Wall of Nirvana, I'm talking about in 91, Nevermind comes out and the entire world changes. And where, to Jim's point, you may have been into Rush, you may have been into Warrant, you might have been into Van Halen, you might have been into Metallica. Okay, it's all good. But all of a sudden, with Nirvana, whether people like it or not, want to admit it or not, and if you lived it, you know it to be true, everything changed. And suddenly, you were no longer cool if you liked White Lion and Warrant. You were an outcast. You were a joke. Those bands were a joke. You couldn't say you liked those bands. I mean, it was, radio abandoned them. MTV abandoned them. That's just all fact. So that's what I talk about when the wall came down. Now, to your point about that White Lion album, which is technically the fourth album, that band had 3 albums. Their initial album was an independent album, Fight to Survive. Pride was the breakthrough album. Big Game was the follow-up. So 2 major labels, indie record, and then this record you're talking about, which was called Main Attraction, that came early 91, which is actually a really, really good record. And even if it did come a couple months before Nirvana hit, at that time, White Lion already had some stuff going on. There was already... Most people felt the previous record was not a great record. They made a great record with Main Attraction, but you got to remember, too, the way albums were marketed then was different. A marketing campaign for a new album was easily a year long. I mean, I talked about this so many times. It used to be one song a week before the album comes out, Tour starts a couple months later, and while the album and tour is going, 2 or 3 more singles and videos. It's not like that at all anymore. It's all front-loaded. Album comes out, buy it in the first week, over. It's totally changed. So the campaign for a record like that from White Lion at that time would have only just been getting started when the proverbial gate came down. And that's what I'm talking about. So even if you got out a couple months ahead of the change that came with Nirvana, you were still doomed when that hit, because, the campaign would go for more than just a week. Now it's like you're lucky if people are still talking about your new album 2 weeks after it came out, because everything was released in advance. So much about the algorithms and all that sort of stuff. And again, 5 videos and singles before the record's even released. See if we can get one more in here before we got to call it. Here's Leo in North Carolina. Go ahead, Leo.
Hey, Eddie. Want to talk about the local event in Cortland, New York for Dio Day on July 19th. I know you got the big event in Los Angeles.
Yep.
But every year, I'm a Cortland, New York native, and I feel we have some underrated musicians. Obviously, Ronnie, not one of them. But the Rods, I know David
Sure,
Feinstein.
Rock. Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Leo, I'm really short on time, though. What happens on Dio Day there?
We have a bunch of local acts that come together to celebrate Ronnie's life, and we raise money for music scholarship for one of the local kids. And it's a great event. diodaycortland.org is where you can find more information. Okay?
Thank you. Thanks, Leo. I got to run. Appreciate you calling in. Yeah, for those that don't know, Ronnie James Dio, born Ron Padavona, was born and grew up in Cortland, New York, before, of course, relocating to Los Angeles many, 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 many years ago. So didn't know, it's cool that his hometown there commemorates him. Okay, thank you all for your calls. I'm sorry if I didn't get to you, but we are out of time. I wish everyone a fantastic weekend. Thank you for listening. Get caught up on the app on anything you missed. Back live with you guys on Monday, 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Phil Collins, your calls, rock news, weekend recap. We'll talk to you then.